Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're excited to introduce the Leadership Development Program we're going to be launching next February in 2026 in partnership with the University of North Florida's Professional and Lifelong Learning Division. The LDP has been around for a long time, originally developed by my mentor, Dr. Harold Resnick, for Raytheon Data Systems, and has been updated and revised and reworked most recently this year, moving from a 6 full-day in-person module program to one that is now 10 half-days that are delivered either virtually or in person, but always instructor-led. Myself, I'm Rusty Bosman. I have over 30 years of human resources experience, most of which has been leading HR departments for corporate level companies in healthcare, IT, and real estate. I've worked in private equity, publicly traded, and private and government sector jobs. Um, and I will allow my partner to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Amy Vandelos, and I am also working with Rusty with Workplace Synergistics, and I have 30 years worth of experience. I've done that both in for-profit and nonprofit organizations. I tend to have a deep background in healthcare, and have spent the majority of my career working with leaders at all levels.
Very good. And we will be your instructors for the program. And we're also consultants. And one of the things that we notice every day when we are working with our clients is we see the same kinds of issues coming up. So we'll see things like leaders are overestimating how clearly they communicate, whether that is with the cadence with their folks, having regular one-on-one meetings, not often enough or not clearly enough articulating what the expectations are. Another theme is we see a lot of organizations that we work with that don't have very deep bench strength. They are either not developing people or haven't put an intentionality behind how they're going to develop people to get them ready for the next level. And as a consequence, they're at the mercy of their leadership or their senior leadership. If those folks leave, they're kind of in trouble. And so one of the things that we find ourselves helping our clients with a lot is succession planning and developing that bench strength, particularly around performance standards.
Yeah,
We also,
Rusty, just real quickly around
yeah,
bench strength. The
yeah,
other
of
thing
course.
is we have a lot of organizations who are trying to adapt quickly if they're small, if they're agile. As the
Mhm.
business grows, you're pulling leaders internally, which then also creates those holes, and you end up still having that lack of bench strength because you're pulling from one area to support a brand new area that's popped up. So it's not just in a state organization, but even those that are moving at a very rapid pace. You need to have people ready to step in so you don't disrupt the current operations when you create a new arm or a new line of business.
Yeah, it's a really good point because when you backfill one job, you're creating vacancies all the way down. So that's a really good point.
Absolutely.
And we've also found that a lot of managers never have been taught how to truly lead people. They are good at some point at performing a function. They're so good at it, they get promoted to be a supervisor or a manager. Now they are transactionally managing some function. They're delivering a result. They are managing time frames, outputs, things like that. But there's a difference in transactional management and transformational leadership. And that is the difference that we're trying to actually articulate in this program. Another theme is leaders confuse being nice with being effective. There's a balance between having good relationships and managing with influence, and also setting firm and enforced boundaries with people and making sure that we are staying very laser focused on getting results. There's another thing we're seeing now that employees are burning out. We're kind of hearing this idea of quiet quitting. We're hearing quiet cracking is a new phenomena that we're starting to see articles written about. But employees don't typically burn out from the workload. They burn out from poor leadership behavior. Workloads have always been heavy. We've always had more demands than we could possibly fulfill. What's required is effective leadership and management to actually help them balance in that workload and set positive priorities so they understand where to focus their time, energy, and attention. And as a result, the best talent tends to leave not because of pay, but because of poor leadership. That's the thing that we find more often than not. A lot of the data that I see when I look through the termination rates of some of the client companies is from a margin of 3 to 1 to 5 to 1, depending on the company, the quit rate always exceeds the involuntary termination rate. So that tells me something is happening in that company. The final thing is leaders just haven't been trained to translate strategy into tactical action that people can actually execute against. They haven't been trained to properly understand and prioritize what truly matters, what's going to truly move the needle at a business. They don't fully understand how to manage their time, energy, and focus and lead proactively rather than reactively. And frankly, leadership today is like being on a whitewater rafting trip. I mean, you are basically navigating the rapids every single day. You don't know what the next bend is going to hold for you, where the rocks are in the water, and what wave is going to swamp your boat or potentially even knock you over. And it's kind of all of these forces that are working on us today that are keeping us back on our heels a little bit, and it's not going to slow down. They're going to continue to be challenges. I mean, I didn't even put COVID on here because we're about 6 years removed from COVID, but we're still feeling effects from COVID. We're still feeling effects from the crazy work, the labor force volatility with people quitting, coming back. There's been a lot of movement in the labor market, and we just don't have the same number of people available to fill the jobs that we have. Not to mention what's going to happen with AI, what's going to happen with the pace of change. We
Yeah.
have aggressive growth targets with cost pressures. We don't have successors. We've got economic volatility and regulatory changes. So it's going to continue to be like trying to navigate rapids. And if you don't have a clear strategy on how you're going to approach it, you'll always find yourself in a 100-mile-an-hour whirlwind trying to manage things as they come up. And that's a dangerous recipe for getting into reactive management. So we developed this program as part of an overarching series of programs that help people to get in front of what it means to actually manage and lead people. So the very first beginning program that we offer is a new manager essentials program. It is a module half day, 6 half-day modules, and they effectively take someone who's never managed people before or is new to managing people and introduce them to the 6 key elements of what makes someone really effective as a manager. And this gets you into transactional management. This allows you to set expectations, give feedback, try to help people meet or exceed a performance standard. It helps you to acquire top talent through a good recruiting process, positive interview skills, and onboarding. It allows you to develop people and deal with more than one person at a time if you have a large team. The next step in this evolution is this leadership academy or a leadership development program. And that's the one that we're referencing today. That is a 10 half-day module instructor-led series of classes that really take you to the next step. Okay. That really gets you out of the transactional day-to-day and start helping you think a little more strategically, and it adds some new dimensions. So in both courses, there's self-management. How do I manage myself? And then how do I manage others? The leadership development program also includes how do I start to think about managing the organization? And then after that, there are a number of programs that we offer for the executive level that include an executive presence program, another 6 half-day session program. We also have the leadership challenge that Amy is certified in, which is a Wiley program, 2.5 to 3 full days. We also offer executive presentation skills and targeted skill building courses for specific skills. Along those same lines, we also offer ancillary services and products that allow us to support talent as they're moving through each of these phases of their development. From 360 degrees, we do executive coaching. We help to develop individuals by blending a coaching and training module. We also do team and group assessments as well. Today, we're going to be talking about the Leadership Academy. And I just want to say that we're not alone in thinking that leadership development is important. According to Deloitte, 80% of US CEOs said rapid change is their biggest challenge and continues to be their biggest challenge. But according to Ernst & Young, only 52% of CEOs are actively investing in resilience and transformation. Clearly, things that would help prepare their leaders to deal with these types of challenges. So,
Rusty,
yeah.
sorry for interrupting. One of the things that I'm thinking about is you just said that is that um, the setup of the series of programs that we have, and the reason I think why you presented that has to do with the fact that we are looking at leadership from a holistic viewpoint.
Mhm.
And it's really important for you to understand that we have put this transformational program in the middle of this entire set of transitional aspects. And we also function offering a series of other services, which simply helps highlight when you look at the robust nature that you're going to walk through here with our leadership development program, there are a series of assessments. We have a vast knowledge that can look at what's identified for high performance. How do we get there? Where's the experience from our corporate environment? What are those skills? And what does it look like when we say, here's when you engage, and what might your people underneath you see? And so I just wanted to bring that up because it really is a holistic view when we say this is that next level transformation and the experience that we're able to add and customize for your individual situation when you enjoy the pro and when you enroll in the program is really that key element that we bring as we work through all of these great modules.
Not to mention a pretty robust wealth of experience. And like I always joke at the beginning of the classes, you benefit from all the mistakes we've made so
Yeah.
that you don't have to go through and make them yourself because we've made plenty and we've learned from them, which is the benefit of that. But we have noticed that these targeted competencies, these targeted leadership behaviors are recognized by a global recruiting consulting firm as being highly correlated with actual high performance in organizations. And so these are the elements that we have used when we are designing the program in its current state. Let's talk let's talk about what the program includes. So the very first part of the program is how do we manage ourselves? It's very difficult for me to sort out everybody on my team if I'm personally a mess. So I need to make sure that I've got myself organized. I understand what my purpose is at my level. I've checked my emotions. I understand what is affecting me emotionally. I'm able to manage my time. I'm able to manage my stress. I can properly articulate what my top three priorities are for myself and my team, and I can manage my energy effectively so that I can show up every day bringing that A game. And so there are three modules here. The very first one is understanding your role as a transformational leader. It's not the same thing as being a transactional manager. You're now moving up another level. You are thinking about things from an organizational level, a little more holistic. You're thinking about how the pieces all fit and work together. And you're also thinking out a little bit further down the road. The second module is all about enhancing emotional intelligence. One of the greatest predictors of success in any organization is having good, strong emotional intelligence. That would mean self-regulation, self-awareness, empathy, social skills, motivation, and a number of other subscales that the EQI 2.0 assessment measures that we will actually provide to all the participants in the program. So each person that participates in the program will receive an EQI 2.0 assessment. They will get expert interpretation of their results, and they will be able to use that to identify some areas where they might want to focus. Um, those assessment results will remain with the participants unless they choose to share them with their organization and their leaders. We don't share it, we only share it with the participants. Module 3 takes the next step where we start to look at what are the elements of stress and how are those elements of stress affecting you? And how does that affect your decision making? How does that affect your willingness to take action or lean into making decisions? So we have another assessment that we provide called the Stress Processing Report. We will go through and provide expert interpretation of the results of that. Each individual will receive his or her own results as well, and what we'll be able to walk away with some better understanding of what aspects of your personality are insulators and they actually help you buffer against the effects of stress, and which aspects of your personality are not helpful when it comes to dealing with stress, and some strategies on things you can do to kind of mitigate that. So that's the first three modules. That is managing the self.
Rusty, I've got a comment in here from one of
Mhm.
the participants, and they're noticing that modules 2 and modules 3 are kind of a little bit about myself as well as about how I reach out across to others, and it's creating a
Mm,
really good bridge to that next section.
for sure, for sure. Good call out. So once we've managed ourselves, now we need to manage myself and others. So that can be each individual on my team, one person at a time, or it can be everyone all together. And so in this case, we're now starting to look at how do we get results? How do we manage performance of other people? How do we set priorities, not just for ourselves, but for everybody on our team? How do we manage all of the people in our group at the same time? And there are phases of team development, there are aspects of high performing teams that we're going to cover, decision making models, consensus, different strategies of getting the best synergies out of lots of people working together. How do we manage to metrics? How do we decide what the best metrics are and then manage to those and then grow capabilities of each person on our team so that they can contribute more and be prepared for advancement? So module 4 is really about enabling performance, strategically developing capabilities. We're going to be looking at not just performance management, but actually how do we strategically develop capability with individuals. We're going to look at motivation. We're going to look at succession planning and everything around 9-box assessments and getting people ready for that next level. How do we develop engagement in our team and try to leverage that for high performance? It's sort of like the difference between there's stuff I have to do and there's stuff I really want to do. How do we make more of the stuff that we're doing on the want to line as opposed to the have to line? In module 5 will be the first part of a two-part series, really getting into teams and team development, particularly around high-performing teams. There's been a lot of research over the past several decades in what makes a really high-performing team. And there are very few individuals who are better known in the realm of team development than Pat Lencioni. And Pat has developed a really great tool called the 6 types of working genius. So once again, every participant in the program is going to receive their own assessment around the working genius from Pat Lencioni in part 1. Part 2, we're going to be looking at how do we actually generate the benefit of a team through the process of consensus. And we're going to illustrate that through a survival simulation exercise. Um, we strand people in the desert, we strand them in the Arctic. Sometimes we strand them in other places like the tropics, where there are different strategies you can employ. There are different resources that you have. And then as a group, you have to come together and make the best decisions for everyone concerned, use the resources most efficiently, and that will either ensure your survival or your perishing, right? So it's a really interesting way to kind of go through and illustrate the benefits of teams and effective team building.
Hey, Rusty, I've got a question in here. Um,
Mhm.
People are asking with the teams, is there a chance to take a look at, we've got virtual and hybrid environments as well. So
Yes.
is there a way, will that be covered in this?
Yes, we actually do cover that. We have some specific skill building around the best ways to approach virtual remote teams versus people who are in person every single day. And there are some specific skills around remote teams, things like making sure that you have a regular cadence of communication, making sure that you're rotating who's going to be in charge of distributing communication or setting up communication patterns. There's a lot of different things that we're going to cover in that. So I appreciate the question. That's a good question. So let's go now to the third aspect of the program. And now we're going to be looking at how are we managing the organization. So you'll see that we're sort of cascading outward. We start with ourselves, make sure that we're organized, have the right priorities, and are aligned with what our purpose is. And then we make sure that the people that report to us understand what our mission is, what their mission is, and what we should be doing, how we're going to measure and define success, and then making sure that we're getting the very best out of everybody together, collectively and individually. And now we've got to figure out, okay, so how are we going to think about our function, our department? How are we contributing to the organization? And in that way, we're looking at things like strategy, change, and culture. Those are much larger topics than you would get in the New Manager Essentials program. So, Module 7 is part one of another two-part series, this time on strategy. So, strategy really is a trade-off. When I'm trying to come up with a strategy, that means I'm going to do some things to the exclusion of other things because I believe it gives me the greatest advantage to win. And so we're going to take a look at the difference between strategic thinking and strategic planning. In every case where we're looking at strategy, it's best to use a case study. So we'll use a case study to illustrate the elements of strategy, and we'll go through what the strategic planning process looks like from an overview perspective, and then we'll really get into something and tackle the case study. So part two, we're going to now be thinking about how do we actually run some analysis, think about the different options that are available to us, and come up with a diagnosis. And a diagnosis is simply understanding what's happening in our operating environment, in our competitive landscape, with our customers, internally with the processes that we have or don't have, and trying to make sure that we're figuring out what our strengths and opportunities are and how we can leverage those with the opportunities in the market and make sure that we're hitting what our clients and customers are asking of us. So we're going to take all of that information and come up with a strategy, a plan of action that's going to involve some trade-offs. And from there, we're going to create a diagnosis and make sure that we have something that's going to guide the broad initiatives along with the day-to-day tasks and goals that we're going to be assigning throughout the organization. Peter Drucker said, even the most sophisticated strategy ultimately devolves down into tasks. And so we need to make sure that we are able to draw that line of sight between a really sophisticated strategy and what people are doing every day. And that's going to tie back to the very first module when we're looking at time management and prioritization. Module 9, we're going to be moving now into culture. And what else did Drucker say, Amy, about culture?
Well, Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
It does. You can have the greatest strategy on the planet, but if your culture isn't supportive of it, if it's not aligned with it, it will quietly go about submarining and sabotaging that strategy and ensure that it actually doesn't come to fruition. So we need to think about what is culture and how do we define it and how do we move it in the direction that is aligned with the strategy we're trying to meet. Make no mistake, you will have a culture, but you will either set a culture that you want or you will endure a culture that you get. And
Mhm.
so we're going to talk about how we actually go about the process of developing and setting that culture. And then we've got in module 10 a process for actually making that change. So we have guided change for sustainable results. We're going to be looking at change management. What is change? Why is change so difficult? And really, when you break it down, it's not the change itself, it's people's emotional reaction to that change, which makes it so difficult. So, what we need to do is we need to understand the nature of it and help the people that are going through the change that we're trying to initiate to get comfortable with it quickly, to minimize interruption, minimize the duration and the depth of that interruption and that emotional reaction, and help them move toward opportunity as quickly as possible, and help to facilitate large scale organizational change, particularly as it relates to aligning that culture with the strategy. And we're going to have another assessment that we'll provide here as well. It is the change style indicator assessment. We're real excited about that one. It's a new one that we've just introduced, and it will be new in this program starting in 2026. So those are the modules of the program. We're planning to start the series February 10th, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time to 12 noon Eastern Time. The modules will be effectively half a day, 3.5 hours. They'll run every other week. So starting on February 10th, we will meet every other week through June 16th. We will provide all program materials and assessments, and we will mail them, actually overnight them to participants' addresses that they provide, whether it's your home, your work, or another address that you prefer, and you'll have everything you need to get started. Um, we have done over 500 participants virtually through our new Manager Essentials program, and we've done two separate classes through the Leadership Development Program under the former format, and we always get great feedback. The Net Promoter scores of 96 or above, and we tend to see movement in the pre and post assessments, at least in the new Manager Essentials class, of about a 10-point swing in effectiveness in their confidence moving from pre and post when they take the class. So we really hope to see you guys there. We hope that you will consider enrolling. And thank you for joining us today.
All right. And I got one more question here, Rusty, and it's if they want to take any of this information back and share it with people in their organization, do we have anything we're going to be sending out after today?
Sure, we'll send out some materials related to this specific program. We'll send out a recording of this video that we're doing tonight, this presentation, and we can even point them in the direction of our catalog as well.
Okay. All right, great. I think that answers all questions, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you in our leadership development program. You can check the professional and lifelong learning page where you'll see more information about the program, and there will be a link to register. You can also feel free to reach out to Rusty or myself.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.